Hello, loves. Welcome to Sorry Satan, the Souls for the Savior, a place where we talk about life, trauma, healing, and the strength it takes to keep moving forward when life tries to knock you down. I am your host, Carrie Hamilton, and I know what it feels like to walk through the darkness. I've faced trauma, loss, pain, and challenges that could have easily defined my story. But instead, I've chosen to use those experiences as testimony, not for just what broke me, but what I survived. Through my journey, I'll be sharing personal stories, lessons learned, and realities of healing alongside conversations that bring hope, motivation, and inspiration to those who may be suffering in silence. My goal here is simple: to be the light for those who we have lost, a voice for those who feel unheard, and proof that survival is possible even when the odds seem stacked against you. No matter where you are on your journey, I want you to know that your story matters, your pain is valid, and your future is still being written. Thank you so much for joining me. This is Sorry Satan, the Souls for the Savior, where trauma becomes testimony, survival becomes purpose, and hope rises above all. And now I turn you over to today's episode. Hello, loves. Today's episode is something that affects countless families, but is often spoke about in whispers: children, safety, and divorce. If you're going through a divorce right now, or maybe you have children and a lot of times they are hesitant to go by your house, or you're having issues with them, wanting to go back by their mothers or fathers, this episode is for you. When a marriage ends, it's easy for adults to become consumed by pain, anger, betrayal, and heartbreak. But in the middle are children, little hearts trying to make sense of the world, and a world that suddenly feels uncertain. They don't ask who's winning or whose side they should choose. They aren't asking who's right, who's wrong. They're asking one simple question: am I safe? The Bible reminds us throughout Scripture that God has a special place in His heart for children. He calls upon them to protect them, to nurture them, and never, ever become the reason they carry the wounds that were never meant for them to bear. Today we'll discuss what true safety looks like for a child, how divorce impacts children emotionally and spiritually, and why every decision should be centered around their well-being rather than your adult conflicts and issues between one another. Because at the end of the day, the children don't need perfect parents. They need safe parents, present parents, and parents who love them enough to put their needs first. Well, I'm just going to cut right to it here. So I have a client who is going through some things that are in regards to children, her divorce, and she had said that she didn't mind me sharing her scenario. So it kind of gives you a real scenario, and maybe somewhere in there you will find your scenario, some direction, insight, and maybe even some relief. So let's do it. A little background about her. So she's in the medical sales, travels a lot, isn't home a lot, but she's also, the bread maker of the home. And her husband, going on ex-husband, does work as well, just not as much as her. And he is more so the home, at-home dad, I guess you could say, but more than her. So she is absent a lot and traveling, but at the end of the day, obviously they both love their children very, very much. And in the beginning, there was love that brought them there. Well, as time went on, they started to feel a lot of animosity, a lot of tension. The dad would be stressed because the kids had certain things going on, and then the mom couldn't make it. And sometimes she couldn't bring them places that, she should have. And, it's just hard, especially being a dad and you're stuck with all these soccer moms, let's just say. But there was times where he really felt he wanted her to step up to the plate. And there were times that she felt that, she's breaking her neck over here and breaking her back. And it was heart-wrenching for her at times not to be at some of the kids' events due to her work schedule. As time went on, the mom was absent a lot, and the dad ended up committing adultery. And the mom thought that she would be able to get over it, but it just put more and more tension to the already existing tension. And In turn, it caused a lot of toxicity, chaos. She had confided in me saying that, there were times that she would throw things because she would just get so angry. Never were they abusive as far as physically to one another, but definitely it became verbally abusive and, putting each other down and derogatory and all of those things. She even did the whole famous, I wanted to stay for the kids and stay in that atmosphere for the kids. And as I had advised to her, it was a great decision to go through with the divorce, because when you are doing that and it gets to a point that it's in front of the children, you are teaching the children what love is not and not what love is. Love is of peace and nurturing and so forth. So they are feeling unsafe. And so when they go and seek partners when they get older, they will seek the love that they knew, which was mom and dad fighting and, going at each other and so forth. So that is one thing I want to touch base on with anyone that's in that circumstance and is saying that they're going to stay for their children. Please, please do not do that, because you are actually causing distress to your children, not value. So anyway, going back in time, they decided it's just best that they part ways, because she couldn't get over the infidelity. He couldn't see that, it became tension for him because now he had that under his belt, as well as the animosity kind of already towards her for being absent. And now it was like that he's kind of moved on. In a sense, it just became even more toxic and, just overbearing for the two of them. So now the two of them, it's been a good year or so, have been in different homes. They're going through divorce. The divorce is not finalized yet. However, both are kind of living their own lives separately and, doing the whole, divorced life. And she is feeling very defeated and overwhelmed because the kids now don't want to be at her home a lot. And how I described it to her was that when your kids are going to each other's, your home and his home, the mind does not know right or wrong. It knows patterns. So when you go through certain situations and events in your life, your mind is reminding you of what patterns and what was safe and what was not safe. So when things come that either trigger or mirror different situations that you have been in, and same with your children, your mind is right away saying, is this safe or is this not safe? So with her absence with work, the kids only knew dad as safety. The kids knew dad as comfort. And we are all creatures of habit. So obviously, even they know habit is with being with dad. So now when you come along and you are in separate homes and the kids are needing to go spend parenting time with you, they're not feeling safe. They're feeling out of place. They're feeling uncomfortable because they don't know mom as loving and nurturing. And don't get me wrong, I don't want it to seem that, that mom isn't that kind of person, but they don't know that because it's foreign to them. They're now starting to build this relationship with mom outside of the toxicity that they knew because dad's not around anymore for them. For her and him to fight. And then on top of it, now they're going in this home that they don't really have that time, that experience with mom because she was always gone working. So first and foremost, I want to make sure to let you know, if you are a parent in this situation, your kids do not hate you. They don't dislike you. They don't, even if they're showing some sort of anger towards you or animosity or frustration, it's not you specifically. It's the frustration that they feel they have to accommodate their peace and their safety and so forth, because of course, legally, they have to go by each parent's home and split the time to be together. And I know for you, it's probably very gut-wrenching and heart-wrenching because, of course, like her, she didn't choose to not be home because she hated her children. She chose not to be home because she needed to make the money for the home and the lifestyle that they lived. And so, it is heart-wrenching and gut-wrenching for her because she's now in this situation where she wants her kids and needs love more than anything going through a divorce, and her kids are like resenting her. She's also feeling that, because at the end of the marriage, she did lose she lost her shit. Let's just be honest. She lost her shit because she felt, betrayed. And here she was with this lifelong partner and he cheated and so forth. And so, she feels a lot of it too is that he is on the back burner, throwing her under the bus and saying she's crazy and this and that because they saw her being crazy when, the ending of the marriage got to the point where it was. And so that's another thing too that the children are seeing is, they're going off of actions and words. And so when they last saw mom with dad being crazy, putting action to the words that dad's saying, that they know that. And of course it made them feel unsafe. So that's also something that's under, their belt thinking, well, I'm not safe with you because I don't really have these relations with you. And then also on top of it, I did see you acting crazy in, the last times that we were all a family together. In Colossians 3:21, it says, "Fathers, do not embitter your children or they will become discouraged." And that's one huge thing I will say, as hard as it is to bite your tongue, not let your emotions reflect your, actions, and not to be ignorant and evil and do, things that are resentful and so forth. Especially when it's in front of your kids, do not embitter your children or, tag them against their dad in return or, go on that same level, because they will get discouraged. They will feel that they then do have to pick sides and they will feel that they need to love one more than the other. And, because children don't know, they don't understand the whole circumstance and situation. So they are just as confused and adjusting themselves. They're adjusting the same lifestyle that you were in. Now they're adjusting, two different family lifestyles as well, because clearly he's moved on with the new woman and, she's here trying to figure out life and she's heartbroken at the same time. So now she's, badgering the dad and so forth because, she saw it as, providing for the family and he's seeing it as just absence and feeling that void. And so he acted upon that. And, thieves don't break into empty houses. So the devil got him in his mind that the marriage was over and he needed to move on. And so I'm sure he is adjusting as well to this new woman. And I'm sure she has her own family and so forth. So the kids are also feeling a little bit of resentment or unsafety there because when you are separating homes, you have to build a safe space for your kids again. So now not only do they have the unsafe feeling with the mom because they're unsure of how life is with her since dad was the stay-at-home dad per se. I mean, even though he worked, and then they're also feeling unsafe with the dad because the dad is bringing someone new into their life. So a lot of times what kids will do in these situations is they will act angry. They will show their frustrations because they don't know how to voice their concerns. Now, one thing, I know you cannot control your ex or soon to be ex, your partner, whatever you want to say. I know you can't control their actions and tell them what to do, but I will first and foremost say, please, if you can, refrain to starting any type of relationship until your marriage is complete. I 1,000,000 bazillion % advise doing so because there's so much chaos and confusion and the dust hasn't settled. I mean, God, you're not even divorced yet. Like to move on to a new relationship and new surroundings and then putting that to your kids and then on top of it, introducing your kids to a new person, you're just literally adding like fuel to a fire. You can't start an empire or build an empire or build a building with an existing building there. You have to demolish and get rid of, go to gravel, go to rock bottom, go to the foundation and then build a new empire and a new home on a flat sturdy foundation. So those who go and jump into relationships and even in putting their kids in it and that whole thing, I can tell you right now, a lot of that is aiding onto the codependency addiction that that person probably has. And a lot of these relationships don't work. I'll be point blank. They don't work out and they don't end up being something that works out long term because you're starting to build a house on an existing house that's still there. You haven't allowed that house to be demolished yet. They haven't closed the doors and ended that marriage yet. So to bring kids into a new relationship on top of an existing relationship that's parting ways, it's just giving more confusion and again, fuel to the fire with that whole situation. So now what could we do, right? If we have a situation, what is some of the suggestions or advice that I could give? First and foremost, keep your children's physical and emotional safety top priority. They come first. It's no more Mrs. and Mr. It is the children. And then you are the Mr. and the Mrs. and the Mr. Please do not put yourself in front of your children because what you're doing, again, you are not building that rapport with them. You're not building that relationship with them and you're not making them feel safe. They're feeling that they are going to be replaced or maybe they even feel some sort of, remorse or something that they're in the way. You don't want your kids to feel anything more other than the total chaos going on with the divorce in general. Also allow your children to express feelings without pressuring them to choose sides. I see this so many times, don't sit there and put your kids in this interrogation and asking them about the dad and the new girlfriend and, pressuring them that, putting your frustrations out and giving your opinions about the dad and the girlfriend and, your marriage and so forth. The kids do not and cannot bear those burdens on their shoulders. Do not put that stuff on your kids. It's in a sense abusive because it's emotional abuse in a sense. But also you just don't want to add that toxicity and pain and suffering to your children. Listen carefully to see if they are giving you any kind of reports as far as fear, abuse, neglect, or even feeling unsafe with their dad in this case, the new girlfriend, because I will tell you this, my children's father had gone and started dating. This was after our divorce, but this lady was abusive to my kids and my daughter started acting very just short-circuited and so forth. And it turned into child services and order of protection against this woman. It was a very crazy thing. And if you think that your kids are going to tell you, I'm going to tell you right now, they're not going to tell you because they're going to fear, especially if you are the parent that is vocal and outgoing and, helping them and protecting them and so forth. They're definitely not going to tell you because they're going to fear that it will get back to them. And if this person is abusing them, they're being silenced by the abuser. That's how the abuser picks their victims. And I can tell you that I am a survivor of child abuse. And make sure that you are documenting any specific concerns and communicating them through the appropriate legal, through counseling, child protective channels, anything in that circumstance. If you see anything or you are realizing or noticing different behaviors in your children, make sure you start documenting them. Because as I just said, my daughter started getting very short-circuited. I would tell her to go brush her teeth and she'd be like, I'm doing it. And she doesn't talk back to me. So I was like, whoa. And at first I thought, well, gee, maybe this is like a puberty thing or something. But no. She was short-circuited because she was on edge. She was on eggshells and, you're in survival mode. Your amygdala basically is in that, fight and flight mode. And so when your parent who you are comfortable with says something that, gives direction, they will be short-circuited and act differently. So make sure that you dig deep when your children are by new individuals, with your ex-partner. Stay positive. Encourage a relationship with both parents. Let them know. Say, mom, it's not that mom doesn't love dad. Dad just chose a different life, or, just encourage them that, we all just love each other. Try to be that. I always say, put those rose-colored glasses on and, talk that ex up, because in the long run, as much as you want to bite your tongue and you want to tell them the truth, in the long run, it makes you look like a better person, because you're not letting that anger interfere with your emotions, and you're not allowing someone's ignorance to become a reflection of your character. And the kids will see that in the long run. And then make sure that you seek support with therapists, counselors, GALs, which are guardian ad litems. Like, make sure that you seek any support that you may need, that you feel needs to be addressed if there is change in behavior or concerns with your children. If you're the parent out there feeling discouraged, feeling, in a way, I guess you could say, taking it personal, you're feeling defeated, that you're not good enough parent or whatever, you're taking it in a personal matter, please know that it is not you physically. It is the fact that it's the safety versus unsafety. And the way you break that is by breaking the habit. Become the more frequent and become the present parent, and make adjustments in your schedule, or even if you have to get a new job that lets you be home more and see your children more. You got to build that rapport with your kids to let them know that they are in a safe place, and you got to make that safe zone and that safe place for them, because they are number one now. And I'm also going to tell you this. History repeats itself, and patterns repeat themselves until they're broken. And possibly this is also maybe an eye-opener for you, because maybe you are actually experiencing something from your childhood. Maybe you had that parent, that mom or that dad that was, cheated on your parent, and then you ended up living with the parent that didn't cheat and grew up hating the other parent, the one that cheated. And I'll say this, when I don't obviously condone cheating by any means, but most individuals that cheat in marriages are because they either don't feel emotionally heard or physically, felt. They're missing that emotion. They're missing that love, that attention. They're seeking that. They're seeking to be heard. They're seeking to be felt. They're seeking to be loved. They want that love back that was there when the marriage began. And so a lot of times then when it becomes one that cheats and has infidelity and so forth, obviously the one that didn't cheat is the one that gets bitter and causes commotion and all and so forth. And so maybe you were that child that had that parent that you don't talk to, or you thought that, you didn't see the whole picture. And parents aren't going to share that with the children, because it's not the children's business. In time, sure, you may find out bits and pieces, and maybe that parent looks like the bad guy overall, and maybe they are the bad guy. I mean, I'm not trying by any means to state that, they were okay for what they did or anything in that nature. But where I'm getting at is maybe this is a way of God having you open your mind and your heart and understand that what happened between the parents isn't necessarily something that was a reflection for you to endure or to make yourself feel that you weren't good enough to be loved, or that maybe that parent that cheated ended up abandoning you in that situation, maybe because the parent who got emotionally involved and had recourse and resentment and stuff against the one that cheated, maybe it caused very toxic situations for that other individual, and they just got tired and wanted to just throw in the towel altogether with the children, and you were wrapped up in it. And it wasn't that the whole time that your mother or father didn't love you, the one that ended up walking away from the whole situation. Maybe it was a mistake on their behalf, and they saw that, and now, they lost their kids in it and so forth. And so maybe this is the way that history is repeating itself for you to, maybe this is a opening for you, God's way of pushing you into rekindling that relationship with that parent that you had animosity against for their infidelity or their abandonment, or, just something in that nature, if that's something that it does, affect you. Like I said, it's now putting you on the other shoe. And maybe this is an eye-opening thing for you. Let's say if it was your mom cheated on your dad, and now, you don't talk to the mom anymore. And now here you're the one that's got the infidelity, and now you're the one that's seeing the resentment from the kids, and you're the one that's feeling that you're struggling and pushing to see your children, and that animosity, is your ex now, and so forth. Like, maybe this is an eye opener for you to do some homework, or have forgiveness and forgive that of your parent and the situations that they were in, and maybe try to rekindle that relationship with your parent, if that pertains to you. So as we close today, I just want you to remember this, that children should never have to carry the weight of adult battles. They deserve safety, stability, love, and all the freedom that they can do and they can have to simply be kids. Whether you're a parent walking through divorce, an adult healing from childhood wounds, or someone supporting a family in crisis, never underestimate the impact of creating a safe space for a child or your children to feel seen, heard, and protected. The choices we make today can shape generations tomorrow. And maybe you're one of those people that are experiencing the generation from your childhood and now into today's day and age. Thank you so much for joining me on Sorry Satan, the Souls for the Savior. It's a safe place where we talk about life's challenges, trauma, healing, faith, and finding hope when the road feels impossible. If this episode touched your heart, please share it with someone who may need it. Until next time, remember that your past may explain you, but it doesn't have to define you. Talk to you soon. Much love.